So I want to revisit something from last week, and that is Donald Trump flipping out over the Premier of Ontario putting out an ad using an address from Ronald Reagan, in his own words, arguing against tariffs. And then Donald Trump flipping out over that and imposing an additional 10% tariff on Canada as punishment for that ad. Now, why did he do that? Why did he flip out? And why did he respond with the tariff? Well, he had to tell his cult that Reagan actually loved tariffs, which is what he did. He said that that was all fake, that I guess they were essentially saying that it was AI, it was a doctored video. I don't know exactly, because it was literal video of Ronald Reagan. But it doesn't matter what he says to his cult; they will believe it. So he said that it was fake, and he said that Reagan actually loved tariffs. So why does Donald Trump have to lie to his supporters about Ronald Reagan's position on tariffs? A president who has been dead since, 2004, I think? Well, the primary reason, I believe, is because Donald Trump cannot afford to lose any of his cult followers. The polls for him are terrible. I've been covering those. They're awful. Right now, there's a new NBC poll out showing that on the generic congressional ballot, Democrats have an 8-point lead over Republicans. It's the largest such lead going back to the 2018 midterms, an election in which Democrats won huge. It was a huge wave election. It was Trump's first midterm. Trump's popularity continues to plummet. He's destroying everything. The people are turning against him. He cannot afford to lose any of his support among the cult. Now, I think he also is, he's worried about the Supreme Court because his tariff case is in front of them and they're going to be deciding that pretty soon. But I think primarily he's worried about any of his cult beginning to wake up or at least question the dear leader. Because there are a lot of people in the Republican Party, well, I don't want to say a lot. There are some people in the Republican Party who still think very highly of Ronald Reagan, primarily older Republicans. The younger generation of Republicans, they don't know shit about Reagan, number one. And number two, they are already just opposed to pretty much everything Reagan stood for because they support Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is pretty much the antithesis of everything that Ronald Reagan stood for the most part. And they have no memory of Reagan anyway. So they have no connection to Reagan. But older Americans, older Republicans who hold Reagan in high regard, they could be swayed. This is the Fox News audience predominantly. They maybe could be swayed. I don't know to what degree they could be swayed. I mean, if these people are still supporting Donald Trump and they're sitting there watching Fox News for hours upon hours every fucking day, yeah, I have my serious doubts as to what extent any of them can be swayed by anything. But if there's anything, any appeal that can be made to them to even start questioning Donald Trump, it could be by showing them how Donald Trump takes the exact opposite policy positions from Ronald Reagan. Someone to, up until, Donald Trump came along, at least, they had great respect for. And then you have, of course, the Supreme Court case, which this whole incident is evidence of how Donald Trump's whole argument on tariffs are legally ridiculous. His whole argument, the legal argument for the tariffs, is that there was a law passed by Congress that if a president declares an emergency, he gets to do certain things without congressional authorization. Congress essentially delegated this authority to the president. You don't have to go through us to do these things if you declare some sort of an emergency. Now, the problem for Trump is tariffs are not one of the things that Congress listed as delegated authorities in that statute. So, and of course, there's the more fundamental constitutional problem that a branch of government cannot actually delegate away their authority, but we'll argue that another time. But specifically as to tariffs, the statute he cites says nothing whatsoever about tariffs. But he says, well, it's broad enough, and by he, I mean his lawyers. I mean, he's too stupid to formulate an argument of any kind. His people are arguing in the courts that, well, it may not say specifically tariffs, but, you know, you can read tariffs in there. And also, the president has a great deal of discretion over foreign affairs. And since tariffs, you know, can arguably be said to touch on foreign affairs, you should just read that into the statute. So that's essentially their argument. But it all hinges on an emergency, that these tariffs are being imposed and all the other things via this statute are being imposed because of some emergency that exists. Well, this whole episode where Donald Trump literally imposed an additional 10% tariff on Canadian imports. Really what he did is he put another 10% tax on American consumers is what he did. But he imposes these 10% tariffs in direct response to an ad that he didn't like. A fucking ad that he didn't like, so he slapped tariffs. Now, is that the kind of emergency that this court is going to say, yeah, that's okay? That's a sufficient emergency. If the president is butthurt over an ad, he can just unilaterally invoke this statute that says nothing about tariffs and impose tariffs. It's absurd. The whole legal argument is absurd. Now, if we were living in any other timeline, I would say there's not a chance in hell the Supreme Court will uphold these tariffs. But since we're in this timeline, with the decisions of this court that have already come out, immunity and the 14th Amendment, the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment with the insurrectionist clause, all of that, given all of that, I have zero confidence that this Supreme Court will rule the right way. I am expecting that they're going to come up with some bullshit justification. But how are they going to do it? Because they don't want to set the precedent, I wouldn't imagine, and rule substantively on the issue and say, oh yeah, the president has authority to unilaterally impose tariffs. I don't think they'll do that. They will somehow say, they will probably buy this ridiculous administration argument that because tariffs touch on foreign affairs, I don't know, it's even that is so ridiculous. The other thing they might do is not rule on the substance at all and just throw the whole thing out by saying, hey, the groups that brought this lawsuit, because it was brought by, I think, business groups who are challenging the tariffs, they could just make some argument that the parties, these groups that brought the lawsuit, they don't have standing. And then they just kick it out. And so the tariffs get to stay, but they would never have ruled on the merits of the case. So they never would have said that a president has unilateral authority, and they never would have said that this statute authorizes tariffs, yet they would have ruled in Trump's favor by just saying, hey, we're throwing the whole thing out because there's no standing. I don't know. I can't imagine that they're going to rule against Donald Trump, but we'll see. Part of me, I'm going to be honest here, part of me wants them to uphold these tariffs. Maybe the standing thing would be the greatest because they won't have touched the substance of the issue. They wouldn't have fucked over the Constitution any more than they already have done, yet they would allow the tariffs to stay. And the reason I say that is because we need to get this criminal piece of shit out of office, right? We need the American people to be furious at this piece of garbage and vote against him and his well, he's not going to be on the ballot again. I know some of you think he might. He won't be. He's going to be drooling on himself in a corner by 2028. But to vote, be angry at him and his cult follower party and vote against them. And the Supreme Court will actually be doing him a political favor if they strike down the tariffs, because the tariffs are doing such damage to the economy, and it's going to continue to harm Republicans politically going forward. If they strike down the tariffs, that's actually going to improve the economic situation, which actually will help Republicans. But that's not why Trump wants the tariffs anyway. Trump wants the tariffs in place for the grift. He wants to slap these tariffs on people for retribution. You know, if somebody pisses him off, like Doug Ford with the Reagan ad, well then slap tariffs on Canada. You know, if anyone else pisses him off, slap tariffs on that country. And it's not slapping tariffs on a country. A country doesn't pay tariffs. It's slapping tariffs on those imports, and the American consumer who buy those imports are the ones who pay the tariff. So, you know, as of course you all know, Trump voters don't know this because they're blithering fucking idiots. And then ultimately, you know, primarily he wants it for the grift. He slaps tariffs, or he threatens to slap tariffs on countries, companies, products, unless people put money in his pocket. Unless, you know, they gift him a $400 million jet that the American taxpayer are going to, you know, refurbish to the tune of $1 billion, and then he's going to take it with him to use for his personal use. Still don't know how the fuck that's even legal. But so there's that, or, you know, buy up billions of dollars worth of my fucking Trump meme coins, so that money goes straight into my pocket. So that's why he will be pissed. He doesn't care about the economic effect on Americans. He doesn't give a fuck. You see him down there in Mar-a-Lago with his Gatsby party. You know, meanwhile the government's shut down, SNAP benefits are ending, people are losing their health insurance, and this fucking piece of shit is throwing, you know, these decadent parties for himself. He doesn't care about the economic plight of the American people. He wants the tariffs to extort money from people. That's why he wants the tariffs. Anyway, I think I got a little off my original topic, and that is, oh yeah, let me just complete the circle here. He can't afford to have any people in his cult, especially the Fox News audience, older Republicans who sit there on their, you know, night after night watching hour upon hour of Fox News, people who actually voted for Ronald Reagan, remember Ronald Reagan, like Ronald Reagan. He can't have anybody tell those people that Ronald Reagan would have been adamantly opposed to what he's doing, which of course he would have been, because that runs the risk of maybe softening his support among a certain part of his cult. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.